Welcome to the ever-expanding theater of the mind. Your narrator this evening, Joshua J. Sane. Reading the script written by David Lynch, Ronnie Rocket, or The Absurd Mystery of the Strange Forces of Existence. Property of David Lynch. Registered with WGA. Black. Fade in a giant stage. Enormous with black curtains open. The entire stage is filled with a wall of fire 200 feet high. Within the fire are thousands of souls screaming out silently. Only the roaring of the fire. Fade out. There is a dark land where mysteries and confusions abound, where fear and terror fly together in troubled cities of absurdities. Black clouds race by over a soot-covered city where it is darkest night. Only a few tiny yellow squares of light in the old buildings and factories. Everything is so dark. Very little life is noticed except the tiny, dark yellow squares. There are no cars seen from this high angle looking down over the city. No people out this night. A closer look at some of the buildings reveals a 30s style architecture, although quite plain and very massive. Office buildings with heavy industrial factories. A smokestack pours tons of heavy black smoke slowly and silently into the dark night sky. Hundreds of heavy electrical wires crisscross through the sky and electricity hums, coming from giant boxes on the poles. The headlights and then a car. It moves slowly below, down a street, then turns out of sight. An old neon sign over a diner reads, City Diner. A large old hospital and the front steps. Inside, a nurse goes by wheeling a patient on a rolling bed. The corridor is now empty. Moving slowly through the empty corridor, an open steel door. Down now, 2 flights of cement stairs, and along a dark and moist corridor off of which sit decaying subterranean hospital rooms. We hear the heavy machinery that keeps the massive building operating. Pipes leak rusted, festering water into puddles on the cold floor. Entering one of these small decaying rooms, we see an old hospital bed. A dim name tag on the end of the bed bears the name Ronald D'Arte. In the bed, under the white sheets, lays Ronald D'Arte, who because of some strange, unnamed happening, is now here quite disfigured. There is no human form to him really, except he does have arms and legs, but they're under the sheets. The chest and head area are very strangely shaped, but there is a hole for a mouth and a nose. In the mouth there are teeth and a tongue which moves. There are 2 eyes above the nose hole. The eyes dart back and forth. Suddenly and quite mysteriously, there is a detective now standing in this room. He wears black pants and shoes, a white shirt, a black jacket, which is now hanging on a rack over against the cement wall. Over his shirt, he wears leather straps and a shoulder holster, which supports a .38 pistol under his arm. He is standing, looking at the hospital bed. Ronald D'Arte is now making some sounds, very high-pitched whines, and is attempting to reach a piece of paper which lies on a movable steel tray next to his bed. The detective moves in closer and hands the paper to Ronald, who contorts in order to get his arm over to it. More high-pitched whines, and a knocking of his hand on the table near a pencil, which leaps with every hit, lets the detective know that Ronald now requires a pencil with which to write. Ronald very shakily scribbles out the following symbols, and all the while he makes very long, high-pitched whines. The detective takes the paper to a small lamp across the room and looks the symbols over. He folds the paper and continues to hold it as he turns toward Ronald again. He comes up closer to Ronald. Ronald makes some more noises. The detective now is very close to Ronald, looking into his eyes. Very faintly, the big close-up of Ronald stays double exposed as the detective turns, gets his coat, and goes quickly out of the room. Putting on his coat, he looks suspiciously left and right down the dark corridor. No one. He goes down the hall and disappears around the corner. No one is on the street as he crosses it to a large building where he stops and turns back to see if anyone is following him. He looks carefully all around him. Satisfied with the situation as it is, he turns back again and goes down the street into the darkness. Ronald's close-up fades. Now the detective is standing in a train station. Several people are boarding a black steel train in a dimly lit passenger loading area. The detective climbs aboard and finds a seat. Even with the lights on, it is still so dimly lit. The cigar and cigarette smoke is very thick. People talk, but not too audibly, because the train and station sounds are so loud. It is a dull crowd of very poor working-class people. The train begins to move and rumbles through the night. At the first station, nearly everyone lets off. An arcing of electricity, and on again to the next station, which appears to be the last, because everyone gets off, except the detective. The people hurry through the underground station, then all is deserted. The train continues to make sounds, but does not move. A conductor appears and finds the detective still aboard. "Hey, off the train!" "I want to go deeper into the city. I'm a detective." "You? A detective?" "Yes." "The train doesn't go far into the city. Can only go one, maybe two more stations. It's closed up beyond that." "No, just one. You want to go, but only one, maybe two stations." "Can I get another train to go further?" "No more trains ever beyond here. They never go. Now there's 3 people." Looking up with a "now this is curious" expression. At this, 2 strange-looking people slowly enter the train car from the other end and begin coming toward the detective and the conductor. "Board!" The conductor leaves the car, and the other 2 sit down and look at the detective, then look at each other, then down at the floor, then up at the detective. Outside, the conductor yells something which echoes in the background. Then someone far away yells. The conductor yells again, and the train begins to move very slowly ahead with much grinding metal sounds. Streaking along, the train moves into even heavier darkness. Occasionally, a light can be seen outside the windows, but mostly all is black. The lights in the train dim down lower as a humming sound comes from above the train. The train slows and enters a station. This station is empty and very old. It looks completely unused. Paper and dirt are blown throughout. Windows are broken. And most of the lights are out. The outside is suddenly lit up considerably by a huge electrical arcing of the wiring on the train. It stops, and the lights inside come up slightly. The conductor walks quickly into the car as he goes by the 3 of them. "Bad repair! Electrical sparks!" Outside, the electricity arcs again, and the train jumps forward. It moves along slowly, and the giant humming sound is now constant. The train goes through darkness, then comes to an area where there are some light bulbs strung up on wires, and then the train slows to a grinding halt. The 2 across from the detective leave the train as the conductor walks in. "It's the end of the line." "Is this the station?" "No one uses the station. This is all that's left, and we have train trouble now. It's a bad place. Get off of the train now. This is the end of the line. From here on, you're on your own, bub." The detective steps off the train, and the train begins backing up out of sight. The detective stands near a bulb. Moths fly against the bulb. Over and over again they hit at it, trying to get at the light. The detective watches the moths. There are noises. The detective turns. He is surrounded by snarling black dogs circling him, moving closer. The detective freezes with fear. Now out of the darkness comes a group of men wearing black woolen overcoats, black hats, gloves, and boots. They stamp their feet up and down as they slowly surround and move in closer to the detective. They join with the dogs and become like the moths around the light bulb. Suddenly, like animals, they attack and quickly beat the detective to the ground. One of the men zaps the detective with a huge electrical jolt from an electrical handgun, which is shaped like a cattle prod. The detective doesn't move. They continue to circle. They zap him again, and the ground begins to smoke. Now laughing, they storm off into the night with the dogs. The detective strains to open his eyes and maintain consciousness. What has happened to this place? Now out of the darkness comes an old man. Now out of the darkness comes an old man, Terry. In fact, one of the two people that traveled on the train with the detective. He is an older man, rather mean-looking, and wears one pant leg rolled up, exposing a gauze bandage. He carries a fly swatter with him, and from time to time swats his sore leg at the bandage. When the sore is particularly acting up, Terry turns the swatter around and digs under the bandage with the wire handle. Now, Terry circles the detective, slowly eyeing him. Get up! Get up here out of the light! I was supposed to meet you, but I had to get rid of that guy I was traveling with. Now you listen to me, and listen carefully. Answer my questions too. You're new to this part of the city, right, sucker? Yes. Yes, just what I thought. What a mess you seem to be, too. I meet a lot of people, and I can tell a few things about them. I can see that you are a mess. Settle down. What do you... Don't try to tell me, I'll tell you. I can tell you that, too, believe me. Well, tell me, then. You want to go further into the city? To the inner city? Yes. Can you hold a thought? What? Can you hold a thought? I can think, if that's what you mean. My God, we're gonna have trouble. Let me ask you a question. Where did you get that ugly, fresh face? Let me say it another way. How is it that you came to an arrangement of features such as that which you are exposing to me now? Can you answer me that? No. This is unbelievable. Are you a detective? Yes. Okay, smart guy. What are the 3 rules of a detective then? Stay alert. Concentrate. Stay clean. Right. Now there's new rules in this part of the city, see? New rules. Say new rules. New rules. That's right. It's hard to understand. Hard to concentrate. I don't know if you heard me. Yes, I heard you. What did I say? You said it is hard to concentrate. Where? In this part of the city. That's right. Now where you want to go, the inner city, it's impossible to concentrate, see? Huh, buddy? Do you comprehend what I'm telling you? Yes. So? So tell me what I have to do. Hell, I suppose you want me to do it for you too. You don't even know? Yes, I know some things, but not everything. Well, God help us. We are really gonna need it. Look at this. A detective. Hey! Let's get in off the street. This is gonna take some time to explain. Terry takes the detective along a street lined with old cheap hotels. He leads the detective to one of them. Outside the door, a mangy black dog growls. The detective jumps back. Hey, it's a dog is all. I'm afraid of dogs, and they know it. Inside, behind the desk, there is a clerk who's sleeping. The detective rings the bell and the clerk awakens slowly as if he has been drinking. How much is a room here? $3.50 a night, hotshot. Oh yeah? Staring defiantly at the detective. Yeah, and you'll have to share the room with some knitters. Knitters? Terry quickly places his hand over the detective's hand as a signal for him to be quiet. That'll be fine. We'll share the room with some knitters. Who's renting this room, you or him? He's paying for it and I'm making the arrangements, okay? Is that okay by you? Yeah, maybe so. You're in 5B, top of the stairs, turn left, and that's 3.50 in advance. The detective gives him the money, and the clerk hands him the key to 5B. At the top of the stairs, he and Terry turn left and go to the door of 5B, open it, and enter a tiny hotel room. Old wallpaper, some floor lamps, an old iron bed, and 2 filthy old women sitting in chairs at opposing walls. The knitters. One knitter is actually knitting. The other is sewing a button on a dirty old sweater. Terry digs into his wound with his fly swatter, then looks closer at the sewing of the button. He smiles a big, curious smile at the detective. The knitters are talking while this is happening. I feel terrible. I just have no energy, and I feel nauseous. I have a terrible cold. It's gone in the back of my throat now and in my ear. Ah! Now you know how I felt. I felt horrible. Remember, I had 2 colds. The second one last week was the worst. I never felt so bad. Now it's in my chest. Just wait till yours goes into your chest. Then just maybe you'll know how drained I feel. Just drained. I guess I never told you about my back. Terry, still leaning over near one of the knitters, close to the button. As Terry speaks, the knitters shut up. See the button? Yeah? See? Yes, I see the button. See the needle? The thread? Yeah. Terry, speaking as if any minute the detective will suddenly understand. The needle goes in and out. The needle goes in, comes out. It turns around, and then it goes back in. The detective jumping back. Yeah? Damn it, it's a symbol. Don't you understand a damn thing? Symbols, numbers, parables, mysteries. This is what I'm trying to tell you about. What's with the button, Terry? It's a process, see? Of steps, a rhythm, involving a continuum, i.e. the thread, you idiot, and the needle. Now what do you suppose the needle stands for? I don't know. You don't know? What can you guess? Well, possibly it's a... Yes? Well, possibly it's a... Yes? I don't know. Terry collapses. My God! Well, you tell me. Terry walks over to knitter number 2. Look at this, a knitter. Look, 2 needles working. See? Look, yarn. A continuum. The fabric. The form. Terry, what are you trying to tell me? I don't go around explaining the unexplainable, buddy. Oh yeah? Well, tell me, Terry, what we have to do. Try to tell me in a realistic way using words. It's not so easy. Try. It's a man named Hank Bartels. Yeah? He's the problem. Yeah, how so, Terry? He got all the electricity, see? Yeah? And he's got the electricity fouled up, reversed or something. So it's around the wrong way, and all the power is sucking up light. He's making darkness as fast as you can pee your pants. And with this darkness, buddy, comes confusion. And this confusion gets stronger as you get closer to him. I.e., Hank Bartels, which you've got to do, but you can't do. So if you did, though, you wouldn't even remember your own name. See?
If I lose consciousness, I die.
Hey, it's the same with everybody here. So are you beginning to see a picture forming on the old litmus paper?
Points to his head. Not really, Terry.
Look, here's a map, see? Of the city.
The detective looks down with Terry to study a map of the city.
This here's the inner city where Hank is. But no one's allowed to go there, see? So my friend, or so-called friend, Bill, see? He maybe was going to take you in there, but now he won't, so's anyway. He was that guy that was with me on the train. And hey, watch out for him, man, 'cause he's mean as hell. He'll kill you. I just gotta tell you.
He will?
He sure as hell will.
Is it safe to talk here? Referring to the knitters. Terry walking over to one of the knitters and holds the top of her head.
You know what's inside here? If you had a power drill, you burn the damn thing out before you even drilled 1/2 inch into this head. This is solid rock, man. Solid rock. Hell yes, it's safe to talk here.
Terry comes back to the map and the detective.
What's on your mind?
How do we get into the inner city and find Hank Bartels and stop him?
Well, the inner city's locked up pretty tight, like I told you. But more and more more people is coming out of it. A lot of the electric trucks are coming out. The trucks pipe out the bad electricity, see, and like the donut men, they're coming out.
The donut men?
Yeah, and those men with those black coats, you know, the ones that zap you. So as they are coming out, there's gotta be a way in. Bill knows one of the gates. He knows Hank, supposedly. It's a bad... I'll tell you, one way through is the dangerous way, but it's going backwards.
Backwards?
Yeah, memory lane stuff. Scary, dangerous stuff.
What do you mean, memory lane?
You know, starting with his parents and working our way back, and somewhere back there is that gate to the old inner city.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. So you think you can handle this kind of job, boyo?
I can stand on one leg.
Bull.
I can stand on one leg and give you the detective's motto.
This I just gotta see.
The detective stands up and then raises one foot so he can hold it with one of his hands. Across the room, one of the knitters looks over.
My God, look at that. He's standing on one leg. Imagine.
The detective's motto: stay alert, concentrate, stay clean. Terry, looking over amazed.
People can't hardly stand up anymore, let alone go for a period on one leg. Believe me, we do stand on one leg for a moment when we walk. As one foot swings forward on the stride, the other remains on the ground. And for that moment, we are, technically speaking, on one foot. However, we are in motion, not stationary. The balance is there, but are we sure? Because in the very next moment, the other foot will be on the ground to save us from falling. It's not the same thing with you. You can maintain balance for possibly even minutes, let alone seconds. And this is remarkable. It's unbelievable. In this part of the city, or really in any part of the city. Of course, I've seen people stand on one foot while holding on to something with their hands.
Main city. Night. Meanwhile, at the hospital,
Two men, Dr. Dan Pink and Dr. Bob Platinum, sneak down to the hospital basement and look into each room, searching. When they find Ronald's room, they enter. They move toward Ronald, and he starts a high scream. They muffle him with their gloved hands, unhook his electrical apparatus, scoop him up, and steal him away from the hospital. They carry Ronald in an old sedan through dark streets to an old building. They go to a service elevator and travel to one of the top floors to a laboratory which the two of them maintain. It is equipped with black, massive electrical appliances and gadgets. The walls are a yellow-green, and all is lit by blue glowing fluorescent lights, giving the place a scientific eeriness. They sit Ronald in a very special electrical chair, which has several tiers behind the back of the place Ronald sits. Each tier has new dials and cords and antenna and symbols. They take a blood test and spin the blood in a special jar. They check his tongue and eyes. They throw levers, turn dials, and mumble things to themselves as they work. They work very quickly. Suddenly, something begins to smoke on one of the levels of the chair, and Ronald begins to bounce up and down. There's a shuddering noise. The fluorescent lights waver. Then a small poof explosion, and Ronald's head droops down. Quickly, the doctors analyze the situation and bring things under control. Ronald's head comes back up, and he looks around, dazed. The doctors study his eyes again. After studying for a while, they turn to each other. "Oh, Bob, we made it. This is a specimen. Let's have him malted." "A malted?" "Yeah." "What?" Dan stands up suddenly. He leaps and punches his friend hard on the jaw, smacking him hard and knocking him down to the floor. "Malteds? Before we even hardly get a look at this? After all we've been through, we're going to work!" "I just meant to celebrate." "Hell no!" "I guess so, but why'd you hit me so damn hard?" He pushes Dan back against the machine. "Don't hit me so hard." "All right, but let's get a look at this specimen." "Okay, let's get a look at this specimen. What a beaut! You know, we can really do something with this. Get the chart out." They both go to the wall, and Dan pulls down a wall chart entitled "The Average Handsome Man." Arrows point to specific features such as straight nose, clear eyes, ears not large, strong chin, good jaw, clear complexion, etc. "It's gonna be some work." "We just have to take our time and think it through. No mistakes this time, Bob." "What do you mean, Bob? What happened last time? What do you mean, Bob?" "Scalpels, boy. We'll do it again. Just don't dwell in the past. The past is the past." Look. We'll do it. We'll just take our time and get it perfect. You know that I'm a perfectionist." Slams his fist into his hand. "I can't stand these mistakes. And then you wanted them malted right away? What is it? You understand, right, Bob? We are surgeons." "Yeah, we're surgeons. I only meant to celebrate." "You know, you really get to me. You want me to quit? 'Cause I will. I've had it up to here. No malteds? All right, no malteds. But can you stop dwelling in the past? Are we in the past? No. Hell no. I'm not gonna quit. We're in the present. Why not? Why go where you're not? It's gone." "All right." "You can't bring it back, Dan. Face it. You can't change what's all right. Already happened." "Shut up. Just you be quiet. Look at this chart, okay? We're in the present. We're going to operate." Suddenly, Dan realizes he has urinated in his pants. He looks down at the wetness. "Damn!" He looks back up at Bob. "Let's get some sort of idea where we stand with this specimen. Ronald de Arte. Then we'll fix some malteds. All right, Bob? All right? Now we're starting off. It's going to be one of our finest projects." There is a knocking at the door. The doctors turn as the door opens. In comes Deborah, very small, very finely dressed, and a heavily made-up woman. The doctors obviously know her and have been expecting her. Bob and Dan in unison. "Hi, Deborah!" "Hello, boys. Let's see him." The doctors take her over to Ronald on the chair. "Oh, sweeties, looks like an awful lot of work for you." "Don't worry about what he looks like now." "He'll be all ours, won't he?" "Yes, he will.
Yes, he will. Please come up to dinner now. I've been waiting dinner in my apartment for you for over an hour. Will you come up now?
Deborah, we just barely even started.
But you have to eat, don't you?
Yes, but I can't work on an empty stomach, Dan. I'm gonna start shaking or something. Shaking? 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 Let's eat then. I'm gonna take my fucking light off, and I'm gonna pull 3 light plugs, and I'm gonna put on my coat.
Sweetie.
Deborah goes to Dan and takes him by the arm, then referring back to Bob.
Come on, Bobby.
They exit after Bob struggles into his coat. His lining of his coat was torn and his hand stuck in it. Upstairs, Deborah's apartment is extremely elegant. She has a big poodle dog and big vases of flowers. The poodle spends the entire time lying on its back under the dinner table, panting. Deborah has an older woman in a uniform serving the dinner. The dish this evening is a strange-looking vegetable with clusters of leaves on it. They begin eating by breaking the leaves off and floating them in a bowl of water, which sits in front of them. With special spoons, they spoon in small round balls, which dissolve and make the water thicker. They then cut off parts of the remaining vegetable and dip it into the thickened water bowl and eat it. It has a spicy hot taste, and they all breathe funny after eating each mouthful. The conversation during dinner is dominated by Deborah, and the older uniformed lady listens to all of it from behind the kitchen door.
A little tickle, you know where. I mean now. You can bounce too, sweetie. And roll and bounce. Oh, that's good. I have a tongue, you know. And right away I start using it, don't I? Right away I'm using it because this is the way I believe. Right away I start using it because this is the way I believe. I have fingers too, and right away I start using them because this is the way I believe. I take my time, and I have a breath. This breath. I breathe so quietly and softly on the neck.
The poodle continues panting under the table.
This is done over and over, and now I breathe all around. This is why I am breathing, because it makes a softness. The hair stands and the skin gets funny. You know, the whole thing is so pretty, like a picture. It's like furniture. Now, the rubbing.
They both turn to her. Behind the kitchen door, the uniformed lady presses herself harder to the door to hear better.
The rubbing is something that I do because this is the way I believe. The rubbing, for me, is beautiful. I am an artist, rubbing and rubbing. Sometimes I rub hard, sometimes I rub softly. Sometimes my little fingers rub, rub, rub so softly, so tenderly. Bobby, you look tired. I think Dan will stay tonight.
But he stayed last night.
You will stay tomorrow night, sweet, I promise.
Downstairs, Ronald sits in his chair in the laboratory. He looks lonely in this strange green room. Many electrical sounds humming, moving closer to Ronald D'Arte at night in the laboratory. His eyes, confused, staring. Back in the deep city, Terry is still talking. The detective is still standing on one leg, and the knitters are still knitting. There have been stories of people standing on their hands, but both of their hands, never only one. There's a man around the corner who supports himself on one hand and one leg. Maybe you'll see him when we go get something to eat, because he's usually out front of the diner. I knew a man once who could get out of bed without using his hands, but then he'd usually fall over or get sick, you know. Nowadays, with Hank reversing the electricity, most people like to sit or lie down. A lot of people have diseases now, you know? Diseases, physical disorders.
Even if they are feeling kind of good after the trucks come around.
They act funny from then on. In other words, they get permanently changed, you know? But you being able to stand on one foot is damn near unbelievable. It's damn good. Main City, Bob and Dan's laboratory, day. Main City, Bob and Dan's laboratory, daytime. It is foggy outside the lab windows. Distant factory sounds are heard. The doctors have opened Ronald up and are putting electrical components inside of him. After closing him, they leave a tube through the skin onto which they hook an electrical device that Ronald will always have to wear on his chest. Out of the device comes another tube, and at the end of it there is a rubber bag and a small needle, which is again inserted back into Ronald's skin and taped over with adhesive tape. They use electricity in several foreign manners to carve Ronald's face and graft on new features. Unfortunately, these doctors aren't the artists they think they are. Their hearts are in the right place, and they have tremendous energy, but the results are far away from handsome. The doctors are very serious while they work. They concentrate very hard, and their faces contort in funny ways. It's now break time, and Bob is bringing the malteds over to where Dan is by Ronald. As they drink their malteds, they discuss their work. So what are you thinking? I'm thinking that the ears will have to be really done well this time, Bob. I agree with that. They're complicated, and always before we seem to hurry through the ears. You want to divide up the work like usual? I'll take the ears and you do the nose or something? Dan, going around the bush. Maybe. He reaches over slowly and turns a dial, and Ronald moves some and opens his mouth. Inside the mouth, the tongue starts flapping. He turns the dial down some. That mouth is gonna be a problem. Well, do you want to talk it through? Shall we start on it? There's something else that we haven't thought about, Bob. That's his hair. I was gonna say, yes, I know, the hair. That is something to think about. Hair. Dan downs the rest of his malted and stands up. Pauses. Moves close to Ronald. I'd like to do the ears, Bob. You've been leading up to this. I knew it. I know they weren't quite right last time. You want the ears? Well, I want the fucking ears. He stands up. I grafted them high last time, but that isn't the point. I'm the ear specialist. You got no right taking the ears. You only done one ear. I want the ears. He's trembling. You've been trying to think of a way to get the ears. I know you. You've been lying awake at night thinking of how could you manipulate me into giving you the ears. And on this project, I seen you planning. I knew you were trying to get them from me. I just knew it. Bob strikes out and smashes Dan in the face. A short fist fight follows, and then, all right, you keep the damn ears. Bob, bleeding and panting. No, you take the ears. It's not worth it. I'll work on something else. Maybe the hair or something. No, I'm sorry, Bob. We'll both work on everything. That way it'll be perfect. You take an ear, I'll take an ear. We just have to keep good measurements. We gotta keep good measurements. He buckles over and slams his fist into his hand for emphasis. The laboratory is now lit for precision work, and the chart of the average handsome man has been moved closer to the doctor's work area. They are each working on Ronald's head. The process involves a light foam over the skin and electrical instruments hooked here and there. Small electrical tools are used by the doctors to reform Ronald's skin. The foam hides most of the work. Dan is now putting the nose into place. Bob is assisting. Dan lifts the nose off the table where he has been fashioning it. The area for the nose has now been cleared. Dan is just starting to place the nose. That looks good. If I can place it now, let's have the opening. All right. Bob pulls some skin apart. Dan placing the nose. This is about the best nose we ever done. It really is. Hand me the cotter and let's stitch this out. Hold it. Let me plug it. As he plugs the cotter and Ronald begins to make a strange noise. Bob adjusts the dial and the noise stops. He hands Dan the cotter. Good. He begins a delicate burn all around the seam of the note and head. Bob begins a stitching process. The ears will be next. Later, Deborah is standing looking at Ronald and his new nose. The rest of Ronald's head is covered with foam except for the mouth, which looks like it always has.
This nose reminds me of a small pillow. It's so soft looking. I like it very much. You're rebuilding this boy. He is so fortunate to have you two.
Dan and Bob smile. Deborah walks slowly, crossing the room, then turns.
Bobby, come up now. Upstairs with me.
Go ahead, Bob. It's late. We're through for the night. Bob, smelling a rat. Don't do anything till I get back. I won't. Don't even clean up or anything. Promise? I won't. Do you promise? I promise! Just go right to bed. I promise, I promise, I promise, stamping his feet.
Come on, Bobby. Dan will behave himself.
Deborah and Bob are crossing her living room. It is fairly dark.
Remember the yellow light bulb? She laughs.
Bob is embarrassed.
I've got a new one for you, Bobby, and some new wire. Aren't you happy? Happy?
Bob smiles sheepishly. Downstairs in the laboratory, Dan is over near Ronald and he is pacing around and around. Suddenly, he can't help himself. He decides to break his promise and plunges into work on Ronald. He begins to prepare the side of Ronald's head for an ear. Upstairs, Deborah and Bob are in bed. It is quite dark. Bob is on his hands and knees under the blanket and straddling Deborah, who is smiling and laughing as she reaches back to plug in a wire. Bob screams out as yellow light glows out from under the blanket, illuminating Deborah's chin and sending a faint yellow glow around the wall. The light begins to blink on and off. Bob begins to laugh and scream, in unison with the yellow light. In the laboratory, the next morning, Dan is still at work. Dense fog is seen out the windows. Dan already has one ear on and is working on another. Upstairs, Bob and Deborah are crossing the living room. Deborah's poodle is whining softly. Yes?
Better than ever before?
Yes, Deborah. Deborah, can I come up again tonight? Dan just had 2 nights in a row.
We'll see.
All right, would you clean my hands again?
Here, let me wipe your hand and face, sweetie.
She begins to wipe Bob's face with a damp cloth she has been carrying. She wipes his face over and over and over again, and then she cleans his hands carefully. I guess I better go wake up Dan.
All right, my sweet Kabini. Fly away. Remember to try and sit up straight. You're getting round-shouldered.
She curves her hands over his shoulders.
Take these sweets for you and Dan.
She goes to the table and gets some very fancy large candies and gives them to Bob. He has to hold them with both hands. I'll have to clean my hands again now.
Goodbye for now, sweet.
Goodbye. Maybe I should have cleaned my hands better, these candies.
They're fine, Bobby. Your hands are clean. Now go wake up Dan. Goodbye.
Bob, calling back as he goes downstairs. Goodbye. I'll clean them again anyway soon for work. We're putting on the ears today. It's hard for Bob to open the door to the laboratory while his hands are full of candies, but he finally manages. Meanwhile, Dan hears Bob coming in. However, he's in a ticklish spot and has to hold several things in place, including a cord in his mouth. He can't hide the fact that he's been working on Ronald without Bob. Bob enters and sees Dan. At first he smiles, then he sees the ears. Now you just wait a damn minute. I can't figure out how these ears got on here. In a rage, Bob flies across the room. He wads the candies in his fist and he hits Dan over and over and over again. I can't figure it out! Later, the two of them are working very silently. Both are beaten looking. Dan has musk candy stuck in his hair as he rubs his eyes. What was all that? My eyes are still burning. Your eyes deserve to be burned. Suddenly, Bob moves a lot of the foam away with an air instrument and, forgetting his anger, yells out, Dan, look! He's looking good! They push more foam away to get a good look. They're both very excited. All the features on Ronald are well formed, but they do not work well together. One ear is quite a bit larger than the other, and there is no hair at all. Several areas are not yet healed either. We got the touch, Bob. We really got the touch. Let's come up to the 15,000 on that device. Maybe we can speed that healing up. That's a really good idea. Bob turns up the dial. All the fluid there is just leftover, you know? Right. Bob crouches down and surveys the ears on Ronald. The ears may be slightly off. He looks at Dan. Dan dives him a look again. Dan gives him a look back. Bob removes more foam, revealing the new Ronnie. I mean, what can you say? Look at that quality. The workmanship. They slap each other on the back. I'm a little worried about the hair, though. He's gotta have hair. Well, we've gotta do it then. What color do you think? Well, we got a bunch of brown ones left. All right, by God, let's use them. Later, the top of Ronald's scalp. Dan and Bob have put in several hairs. The hairs are long and wiry. They have many more to place before Ronald will even begin to look like he has hair. He looks quite strange now with these new, wiry hairs sticking out. You keep going. I'm gonna get us some malted. This hair is really getting to me. All right, me too. Bob goes over and scrubs his hands and gets going on a couple of malted milks. Dan remains sticking in more hairs, one at a time. Bob brings the malted milks over, and Dan stops working and takes a drink. My hands came clean. They look clean. I'm going to suggest something, and you can stop me if you want to, but I'm still going to suggest it anyway. What about a wig? A wig? A wig. A wig. That's a good idea. We'll stop sticking in the hairs right now then. We won't stick in another. Shall we get him a brown wig? I've been thinking red. Dan, you won't believe it. I've been thinking red as well. Later that night, Deborah, Bob, and Dan are all staring at Ronald. He has on his new red wig of high wavy pompadour style hair. It's perfect. It's perfect.
It's perfect, sweets. Is he finished?
Almost, but we have to start him. You set, Bob? All set. Pull 3 light.
Oh.
Bob and Dan each have several controls. They begin turning dials and pulling levers. The chair begins to vibrate some, and Ronald begins to come to, but very slowly. From time to time, he opens his mouth and emits strange sounds, and also from time to time, he blacks out altogether. Even when he's out, he twitches and bounces. When he begins to fade, Bob and Dan pour on the juice, and the lights dim way down, and there is an eerie glow. Deborah looks beautiful in the glow as she watches the spectacle. Slowly, Ronald begins to come to again. He looks very awake, and his eyes roll about. He begins to move and begins to scream. He starts to stand as he screams and vibrates violently when all the lights blow out. Pow! All at once, Ronald falls back into his chair and is still. However, he looks awake now. The moonlight is illuminating the room slightly. Scalpels! Bob looking down out at the window. I think we blew out the entire building. Ronald moans and his eyes start rolling. I hope he's alright.
How will you fix the electricity?
They'll be on it soon. But last time it took hours. I'm afraid this is it for a while. Ronald stops moaning and looks peaceful.
He looks peaceful now, in the darkness. Is he alright, honeys?
I think he's alright. We brought him back around. A CU of Ronald reveals open eyes and a dazed, peaceful look. Bob, Dan, and Deborah move to a window and look out on the city. Deborah turns to Bob and then to Dan. She gives Dan a slow, tender kiss on the lips, and then gives Bob the same. The 3 of them stand looking close together, looking out the window. Ronald sits looking around the room, still tied to many wires and sitting low in his chair. Some clouds go by slowly, and Bob and Dan and Deborah, hugging now, watch the city and the sky. Suddenly, the power comes back on. Ronald screams bloody murder and is shot out of his chair 20 feet high through the air. The wires stuck to him keep him from going any further. The lights in the room blink on and off, and the equipment goes crazy with sounds and sparks. Dan and Bob rush to turn things off. What happened? You forgot to turn the damn machines off. That's what happened. I forgot. Well, what does it look like?
Sweet, stop.
I forgot. What about you? Bob shoves Dan and he trips over Ronald's wires. Bob hits Dan hard in the nose. The fight goes on all around Ronald, who is also on the floor. In and amongst the wires, Dan and Bob beat each other, while Deborah is screaming for them to stop. Ronald sits up. The lights flutter several times, dim and then go out. This stops the fight, and all is dark and quiet, except for heavy breathing. There must have been 10,000 volts through him. I think we might have some trouble there.
You're bad. You're bad, bad, bad.
Did you see him fly across the room like a rocket? Sounds come up slowly. Ronnie the Rocket.
Ronnie the Rocket.
Up close on Ronald in the moonlit laboratory, he says,
Ronnie Rocket.
The other three turn to him in amazement. Dissolve to interior of Bob and Dan's laboratory during the day. Ronnie is now fitted with a small black suit with a nice white shirt. Bob and Dan now have the shirt open, and they are in the last stages of fitting Ronnie with his electrical chest appliances. This is a life-sustaining device, which Ronnie will have to wear continually. It fits to his chest with little shoulder straps, and one strap goes around his torso. A series of electrical wires comes off this new device and goes surgically into Ronnie's body. One fat cord comes out of the appliance, and it ends in a plug. Don't tighten the strap too tight, Bob. I'm not. See, Ronnie? See the plug? You have to learn to plug yourself in every 15 minutes when you hear the little warning signal. Otherwise, you will, not wanting to upset Ronnie, otherwise you will feel funny.
Funny.
Yes, you said funny. Can you say Bob?
Can you say Bob?
Yes! You're all dressed now, Ronnie. You're a little human being. Can you say human being?
Canoe bean.
It sounded like he said can of beans.
Head canoe bean.
Yes, human being. My God, Bob, you can talk. Interior of Bob and Dan's laboratory. Bob has painted yellow footsteps on the floor at one end of the lab. This is planned as a learning device in order to teach Ronnie how to walk. Ronnie, we're going to learn to walk.
Wow.
That's right. Now come on, come here. That's it. Now put your foot. No, your right foot. Right there on the painted foot. No, that's it. No. On the painted footstep. There, yes. Now carry the other foot through the air like this. Watch me. Like this. And put it on the next painted footstep. See? Watch me walk, then you do it, okay? Watch me first. Ronnie watching Bob as he picks one foot up very high and carries it to the next painted footstep. Ronnie watches this strange walking. Then he mimics it perfectly. The only problem is Ronnie doesn't ever smooth out his walk. He learns the high step, and the high step is what he does from then on. No, Ronnie, you don't have to lift your leg so high. I was just doing that in order to very carefully show you the various phases of walking. Now you can stop this high step, which I showed you, and walk normally. Walk normally.
Molly.
Yes, now let's walk around normally. They begin walking again, but Ronnie maintains this very meticulous, high, long stride. Dan enters the lab carrying a box of electrical apparatus. Even though he sees this strange sight of Bob and Ronnie, he smiles proudly. Their son is walking. Interior, Deborah's apartment. Daytime. Look, Ronnie, this is Deborah's apartment.
I'm so happy you are finally able to see it.
I am too. Can you say apartment?
Can you say partma?
Come, Ronnie.
Come, Ronnie. Let me show you around.
Deborah takes Ronnie's hand and begins to lead him, but her poodle dog stands up and begins to growl. Ronnie makes a small noise and leaps back. He shakes with fear.
I think he's afraid of the dog. I'll have to have it removed. I'll have it removed, Ronnie.
Slowly, so that Ronnie can see everything, the three of them take him through the living room and dining room. His little eyes darting here and there. In the kitchen, Ronnie high steps around looking at all the different shapes and textures. He spots the toaster. He goes to it and looks at his reflection in the tiny, shiny metal. It's a toaster. Look. He puts a piece of bread into the toaster and pushes the toaster on. As the toaster heats up, a strange electrical disturbance starts in Ronnie's chest, and soon he is emitting through his mouth a high-pitched electrical scream. The toast blows out of the toaster, scorched, black, and burning. Deborah screams. Smoke begins filling the room. Bob and Dan rush Ronnie into the living room. His eyes are rolled back. Bob and Dan begin to look at various components on the chest appliances. It's the RZ factor again. I think we really got too much the other night. Yeah, but what can we do now? Maybe we should run him through again. Hell, the work! Yeah, but the shielding's all gone to hell, Bob. That jolt the other night.
Will he be alright?
Sure he will. We just have to keep an eye on him. Dan looks around. Turn something else on. Turn the radio on. Deborah goes over to a big floor model radio and turns it on. She turns the dial, trying to find a station. She passes a station where a woman is singing a song. Ronnie almost leaps to the radio.
Do you like that? Do you like that song?
She tunes in the music. A beautiful melody is being sung by a woman with a high, clear voice. Dan stands Ronnie by the radio. There is a slight static sound. He adjusts a dial on the chest appliance. The static disappears and he stands back away from Ronnie. Ronnie suddenly opens his mouth and begins to mimic the woman's voice on the radio. He actually sings some very beautiful notes. Deborah looks amazed and she happily turns to Bob and Dan, who also begin to smile. What a voice!
A singer!
Suddenly, though, the electricity goes funny again. Ronnie's voice causes tremendous static to build. The electrical complication causes a wild distortion of the woman's voice. And before Dan or Bob can get to Ronnie, the radio speaker is blown out with an explosion. The radio, having been destroyed, sits smoking silently. Ronnie begins to cry. Deborah is horrified and rushes to his side, joining Bob and Dan.
It's all right, Ronnie. What can you do, boys?
We'll shield him good so unless he's near lots of power, he'll be okay. Yes, that's it. This is what we'll have to do.
Good. I noticed he's developing several sores on his little face, honeys. What is that?
It looks like acne.
Yes, it does.
It sure does.
What do you suppose is the cause of it?
It could be the electricity, but... How old is Ronnie, do you think? I don't know, he's maybe 20, maybe? 20, I'll bet he's 16. Look at that acne. He's high school age. Probably 16, yeah. I was overshooting it a little with 20. He probably is 16.
I think you're right. Oh, how wonderful. High school age. High school was such a dream.
Yes, but he's not in high school.
No, that's right. How horrible.
Well, we'll get him into high school then. Oh, I don't know. He's going to have to learn an awful lot before he could even get him into a high school.
Do you think we can?
Ask Ronnie if he wants to go to high school. Deborah does, and Ronnie mumbles some sounds happily. She turns back to Dan and Bob. We'll have to get him enrolled, though, and that will mean questions. We have to have a plan. We have to think. Dissolve. Interior, Bob and Dan's laboratory, daytime. Dan stands at a portable blackboard with a pointer stick, and Bob stands with Ronnie. All the letters of the alphabet have been drawn with chalk on the blackboard. Dan says a letter out loud as he points to it with his pointer stick. Dan pointing to the letter A. Bob says the letter with Dan, then Ronnie says it as he makes a smaller pointing gesture with his hand as if he has an imaginary pointing stick.
B, C, D, E. Dissolve to. Dan, Bob, and Ronnie huddled together. Ronnie is speaking. Dan points to A. Bob says the letter with Dan, then Ronnie says it as he makes a smaller pointing gesture with his hand, as if he had an imaginary pointing stick. B, C, D, E. Dissolve to. Dan, Bob, and Ronnie huddled together. Ronnie is speaking. T, F. Right. Now flip the penny like I showed you. Ronnie flips the penny in the air with his little thumb, and it bounces down on the floor. Heads up, Ronnie bends down real low and looks at it. Bob and Dan crouch down and look at it too. Then they look at Ronnie. They wait. Head, T. Bob and Dan smile proudly. Good, Ronnie. That's very good. Very good. Heads is T, tails is F. Very good. Interior, Bob and Dan's laboratory. Early morning. Dense fog is outside the windows. Deborah is there with Dan and Bob, and Ronnie and everyone is dressed up. Ronnie is saying the alphabet over and over again. Oh, I'm getting nervous. Everything will be fine. They'll just probably ask a few questions, then enroll Ronnie and we'll go home. When they ask for his high school records, just hand him this. I got this made up. Show him. Just average grades, whatever. Dan shows this to Deborah. I've changed my mind. You go ahead. I'll stay here. Suddenly screaming. I helped make that up. Referring to the Rack's high school transcripts. Okay. And you're going. You're his uncle. You can go. I'm sure many times several members of the family go to the office to register a boy for high school. I'm sure sometimes the grandparents even go. It's an important decision. And it's a memorable experience. An experience to have in the memory for a lifetime. It should be shared by all members of the family. They may even wonder why more relatives aren't with us. My God. So you have to go. That's all there is to it. Understand? No one will find out about us. C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J. Interior, high school. Hall and offices. They enter the front hall of a large old high school and proceed to the school offices. They are as nervous as they can be. When they enter, they are confronted by a very old, stern receptionist who speaks right up. Can I help you? What is it you need? All react to her stern manner. Dan very nervously. Yes, we're Mr. and Mrs. Pink. We have an appointment with Mr. Murdow, the principal. Who's the father? I am. Who's he then? He's Ronnie's uncle. I see. She looks at her watch. I'll get him. You're 8 minutes late. I'm sure we haven't got 3 chairs in Mr. Murdow's office. She exits and returns with Mr. Murdow. Mr. Murdow, looking at the group carefully. Come into my office. By the way, I obtained a 3rd chair for the uncle. When they walk through the outer office, everyone stares at Ronnie, including the principal. Once inside his office, they face Mr. Murdow behind his desk. The door has been closed very hard by the receptionist. Hello, Mr. and Mrs. Pink. Hello, Mr. Murdow. This is Ronnie and his uncle Bob Platinum. Hello, Ronnie. Hello, Mr. Platinum. Would you all be seated? Yes, good. Now, you want to enroll Ronnie in our school? Yes, we would. QRSTUVWX. Ah, yes, well... BCEEEF. Where did Ronnie attend school last year? Dan with a trembling voice. High School of Factories and Services. We have his records. Good. May I see them? Here they are. PQRSTUV. I see you have a complete list. Also the office transcripts. Usually we request this information ourselves. This is
unusual. We just wanted everything to be orderly and prepared for our Ronnie, so he could continue in higher education. We will have to give him an entrance exam of our own, I'm afraid. It's our policy on all transfers. It allows us to better place the student in a class where he will fit in. What is the chest appliance I see on Ronnie? Dan answering for Ronnie. He's recovering from an illness. He has to wear this. It must be plugged in every 15 minutes. I'm sorry, every 15 minutes? He's not much of a talker, huh?
FGHIJKL.
As his uncle, I can truthfully say that he does talk. I've heard him. Yes, I just meant he's probably somewhat shy. That's what I meant.
We hope this will be a good school for our Ronnie. He needs your cooperation. He really needs the care. He needs the attention. This is the way we believe.
I see. When will the entrance exam be given? Right now, if you like. Ronnie?
PQRSTU.
Your test, Ronnie. Dan crouches down to Ronnie. Ronnie, listen to me. Ronnie. The principal watches wide-eyed. You're going to take your test now. All right, Ronnie? Your test. Your test is now.
Ronnie, the test. Test.
BCDE test. Yes, now. He's ready now. The principal is staring at Ronnie and the group. Interior, testing room, and surrounding halls. Daytime. This testing room is surrounded by wire-reinforced glass, so the student can be observed on all four sides. There is a large clock above the glass on one wall. Ronnie is seated in a desk, and the stern receptionist is speaking to him. An extension cord and electrical box have been provided for Ronnie's electrical needs. Bob, Dan, and Deborah have been allowed to watch out. They are outside the room looking in through the glass. They can just barely hear the receptionist. Receptionist to Ronnie.
This is not a party. This is not a rowdy night on the town. This is a test. This is a 3-part test. Multiple choice, true or false, and an essay. And I will be watching you. And I mean it, young man. So no funny business. You have 1.5 hours. And I might add that this test has been devised by Dr. Herbert Smithy of Freeport University. Funny business.
The stern receptionist turns and leaves the room, but she remains for a while at the glass until she sees Ronnie start filling out the squares on the multiple choice part of the test. Dan quietly to Deborah and Bob. I told him to just color in the blocks where he wanted to. We're going to have to leave it up to fate. I told him to, Deborah. Suddenly, Ronnie starts flipping pennies and going, crouching down, looking, then going back and marking his paper. Deborah looks at Bob and Dan. Dan says to Deborah, he's on the true or false section now. Just then the receptionist appears again. She is shocked by what she sees Ronnie doing. She enters the testing room in a rage.
All right, young man, what is the meaning of this? Don't think you'll pull one over on me or Dr. Smithy. You cannot fool Dr. Smithy.
The bell rings. Ronnie's head flies back, and the receptionist grabs the test from him and marches off. Bob, Dan, and Deborah look worried. Later in the principal's office, they all wait as the receptionist brings in the results of the entrance exam. She hands them to Mr. Murdout. She looks angrily at them all, then leaves. Mr. Murdout looks at the exam and then at Ronnie. Ronnie Rocket?
Ronnie Rocket.
You like mathematics? Ronnie says nothing. Are you interested in mathematics? Getting no response from Ronnie, he speaks to the rest. He shows a definite gift in higher mathematics. Quite a gift. The rest of the exam was mediocre, but as far as I'm concerned, he's more than eligible for this school. Bob, Dan, and Deborah share an incredulous look. He's a puzzling boy. Does he have any brothers or sisters? No, he's an only child. I see. An only child, huh, Ronnie? Ronnie says nothing. He's got the blemishes they all seem to get at this age. He chuckles over this and tries to get them to chuckle along. I had the same blemishes bad when I was younger. Coal Cities is where I grew up. The black coal dust clouds would blow all day and all into the night. It got the coal dust into my teeth and hair and all the pores of my skin. All the kids had it so bad. It's when I saw Ronnie here, I hadn't seen it quite like this since I was back in the coal cities. The factories here will do it too. The coal, the smoke. The smoke makes red sores. That always seemed funny to me. That black smoke would make red sores. All the kids sure had them. Reminds me just looking at Ronnie. He picks up the exam. So this Ronnie Rocket is a mathematician, is he? All nod up and down. Ronnie Rocket.
Ronnie Rocket.
Yes, well, you can start school on Monday, Ronnie. At this, Ronnie's warning signal starts up on his chest appliance, and he gets a queer expression on his face. He bends over slowly and walks to an outlet and plugs himself in. The principal watches this. Ronnie's face is forlorn, a faraway look in his eye. Deborah, Dan, and Bob all look at Ronnie, and then at each other, and Mr. Murdow. Then back to Ronnie, who has found several dead flies by the window. He is gathering them together in his hand.
This is the end of part 1 of 4. Part 2, coming soon. Thank you very much for listening. Like, share, and subscribe.